I sold my practice to find freedom, and somehow I ended up busier, more scattered, and missing a tooth. Meanwhile, Jen is scaling and has more time. Let's talk about why. Freedom isn't found in the exit. Peace isn't necessarily lost in the scale. It's in the systems, the boundaries, and the choices we make. All right. Well, let's hop into it. So, we're talking this week about the idea that when you're exiting, or if you've had an exit or you're thinking about an exit, sometimes it doesn't always equal freedom. And when you're scaling, it sometimes doesn't always equal stress. And the way that I came up with this episode was last week. Me and Jen and Erica, we sort of bounce around ideas, and we're kind of like thinking about what the next show is going to be about. And it's usually, kind of whatever's on the top of mind. And I had 4 different emails open and 12 different tabs. And Jen was like, or I could tell she already had her schedule like 3 weeks in advance. Like, now, does October 17th work for you guys? I have a dentist appointment. I'm like, what? I don't even know what's happening tomorrow. And not only is Jen that organized, but like what I've noticed is you'll be like, okay, so what roles do you guys want to do? Like, what do you like doing? Like, what do you like doing? That sort of thing. And that to me signals someone that's they have full executive functioning intact and their life is together. And if you saw my office right now, it looks like someone was looking for something, was trying to rob me and couldn't find what they were looking for. There's just essential oils because I thought I was going to do an essential oil business. There's skincare because I need to do that. It's a mess. So anyway, we started with this topic because I think it's kind of interesting that you would think if you've sold your practice that you've got all this free time and you're just doing like long walks by the beach and your house is clean. And that is not the case for me. And I think also you would assume that if you guys are scaling and you're still running your practice, that you're stressed beyond belief and stretched to the max. And I think that's why most people kind of shy away from it because they're like, I'm already stressed. I don't need any more of that.
Well, I was saying to Jen just a minute ago, I think you were leading into asking me again how I do it all. And I did brainstorm a list, of things that I do to make everything work. So I'd be happy to share some of those tips or things that I do, my strategies with you and everyone else today, if you'd like.
I think that is super helpful. Before we do that, can you just tell me the feeling like for you? Like right now in this stage of life, I feel very overwhelmed. I feel very underwater most of the time and very like, what's happening to me? In a person that has normally, for most of my life, been pretty high functioning and had it all together, I would like clean up my to-do list. That's how much I felt like I was on top of things. Now I like literally just every day is like a new, like, okay, I just need to get these things done today. So what's your feeling on a day-to-day basis? Are you pretty calm or what is that?
I think I've had a quieter stretch because it's been the end of the summer leading into the school year. So I've been off from school the past couple weeks. I think that takes a lot of pressure off. I think I'm a pretty relatively calm person. So, but I'm not sure I'd call myself easygoing. I do get pretty worried about things from time to time. And maybe it's just kind of ignorance is bliss. I try to not think about what's happening in the practice when I'm not there and, you know, trying to practice more compartmentalizing in my mind of just focusing on what's in front of me to help manage my feelings. But I've certainly had a roller coaster of emotions around all that I do, and different feelings come up at different times. So all of the ones you've
Yeah,
described, I have felt for sure.
I do get that vibe from you too, that you're more easygoing or just more relaxed in general. You don't necessarily let your your frontal lobe hijack your entire system.
And if that does happen, I may not show it. I think it stays internalized. So
Mm,
it takes a lot for me to crack and to
hmm.
show it to the world.
Wow. What about you,
And
Jen? What
Erica,
about your feelings? Like, how do you, is this how you are most of your life, always together?
no,
Or
no,
do you feel
no,
like,
absolutely no.
okay,
No, honestly, I got myself together the last few years for the business because I was like really burnt out and at a breaking point. And I promised myself at that time to not go backwards. So I spent a few years like really making solid changes. That was the time that I was thinking of selling as well. And so this is more new to me. Yes. Am I more like, I would say I'm not really a super organized person. I'm a planner by nature, though. So I
mm,
enjoy planning. I like seeing my calendar and knowing kind of what's ahead of me in the next week or month. I'm not planned out 3 months in advance, though. But there are certain things like that that I do just to stay on top of things.
well, I would love you guys to talk about what those systems are for you and what you do. At the end, I'll talk a little bit about what do you do in the meantime before you've developed those systems, which for me is just asking for a lot of grace from everyone around me. I literally have an open apology on my outgoing voicemail and email autoresponder and website that's like, I'm really sorry, I'm underwater, everyone. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And I think, biggest actionable tools people can get from today is hearing from people that are living this. You guys have crazy busy lives, and it sounds like you all have really good systems in place. So whoever wants to start, just get into it.
I'll start. So I think the one thing that I do a lot of now is I actually subtract a lot off of my list. I don't add. For the longest time, I was constantly adding things to my list, but I think I realized that systems became my self defense against overwhelm because I went through such a period of honestly overworking. I think I've overworked my whole life. I remember being in grad school and I was always working multiple jobs on top of being a full-time student, on top of trying to figure it all out. And I have been a time management hacker from like college days. Not that, and there are certain things that I follow today, but I think one of the things I do a lot of now is actually energy management, where I know when I work best. And so I work best in the mornings. My creative time should be in the morning. If I have a hard task to do or writing, definitely has to be in the morning. And I save tasks later in the day, like admin tasks or I don't know, paying bills or maybe meetings like later in the day, just because I feel like that's a better use of my time. I actually say no a lot to a lot of people. So probably all the moms in my town think I never want to hang out. But I just prioritize, if it's a hell yes, I go. If it's not a hell yes, then it's a no for the most part. I have a social life, I have friends. I like to do things, but I try to really prioritize my time for that. And I do the same thing with work tasks. I do have a hard stop in my day when I typically do not work. So my younger kids get picked up at 2:30 every day. So by 2 p.m., I leave the office and I go pick up my kids and that's it. So I do try to have that as a hard stop. I'm trying to think of other things I do. I have something that I do called capability cap, where like I just know where my capability limit is. So I do business coaching on Thursdays. Maybe that's only seeing 4 clients that day. Maybe it's 2 clients, maybe it's one. Whatever it is, I just figure out what my cap is and I'm like, I feel good with that. I'm going to stick to it. So sometimes that is like turning down money, other opportunities, because I'm just at my limit. So I do try to like protect my energy that way. I'm trying to think of other stuff I do. I mean, a lot of the things I do, I don't think is anything monumental. I think it's all these little micro things that I just have learned to do over time. I don't delegate tasks to staff. I delegate outcomes a lot. So I kind of give them guardrails where I'm like, this is what I want to see. you can decide how we get there, but this is the end result that I need. So I give them parameters, I give them guardrails, but I think for me, that's been super helpful because then I'm not micromanaging. I don't have as much follow up, but I'm still getting the outcome that we want. And I'm actually not a big proponent of meetings in the office. So and again, this has evolved over time. When I have meetings at this point, it's usually with just leadership. And sometimes things can be done in a 15-minute meeting. I think a lot of times we schedule things for an hour that don't need to be an hour. I don't know why we do that. It's just like a default. But and then I'm not a part of many meetings in my office anymore. And again, this has evolved. I'm not at staff meetings. I'm not at group supervision. I'm not at trainings occasionally. And that's just evolved over time again and I'm paying people to be in these roles to do those things. So I want them to lead and them to step up. And I feel like if I'm there, maybe that's not a good use of my time. And I don't know. I'm trying to think of other things. I try to automate as much as possible.
Okay.
I try to schedule emails in bulk, time batching. You know, if I'm just doing social media content or just doing writing, I try to block out my time and just do that. I think I'm having trouble now with like throwing the podcast in because ideally I'd love to record and then focus on other topics that we're talking about and then put them on social and write a blog and do all those things, but have not gotten there yet. So those are some of my main little hacks.
Yeah. I just think about all the hats that we wear. And when you own any sort of business, right, you are looking at your bottom line, you're making sure cash flow is healthy. That takes a good amount of time, right? Like understanding what is this going to look like, forecasting into the future, like what is this going to look like 2 and 3 months? Are we going to have enough cash flow to support our people? And then even when you have good systems in place, like you're talking about, where you've sort of now delegated, and so each person has these different roles, there's still this level of oversight that you have to come in and say, you know, is this person doing what I need them to do? And if they're not giving me a visibility dashboard, how are they reporting, and how does that align with what we need to get done? So I guess like when I have this like real fascination with you, Erica, and people that do all this stuff, I'm coming from that place of like, how does one get all of that done? Like, and I'm just talking like, that's just the work piece of owning a practice. Then if you're an entrepreneur and you've got other side hustles, you got to automate those, right? So we automate this podcast. Right. And then I think about, I get 72 dings during the day and I turn them off, right? So I'll turn off notifications, but like by the end of the day, I've got purple shin guards tonight for practice. We're going to meet here. Does anybody want to do Starbucks? Hey, little Jimmy's having a party. He doesn't like Legos, like all day long, right? And so then I've got to flip into that mode, go get the prescriptions, go to the teacher's thing, back to school night. And then, oh, I'm married. I need to like maintain that. I should probably schedule a date night. And oh, I got to pay the babysitter for the last date, you know? So it's like all of this stuff, I guess. What does that actually look like for you guys in terms of your to-do list? Like do you have a master to do? And then how do you like cut yourself off and move into the other piece?
I have a work to-do list or a practice to-do list and a personal. So I work on both, or I prioritize one or the other for the day that I happen to be in. I do focus a lot more on household and kids on some days, and then others are more practice work and business oriented. But then there's plenty of days that I'm doing something for everything, like you're saying, like, you know, shopping for water bottles happened this weekend for school. And I also did a little work for the podcast, you know, but my priority has been with family and the household. I have, some things that I do to strategize. I block one day off for just administrative tasks, so no scheduled appointments on that day. And that really gives me some breathing room because whether I'm seeing my small caseload of clients or providing supervision for my staff, those are in the chair hours. So, you can't do much when you're doing back to back appointments. So I need at least one day where I don't have that happening. One day a week, I just go to bed super early. So I finish work, I have dinner, I do a couple of household tasks, let the dog out, take him for a walk, wash the dishes maybe, and get in bed really early. And I may not sleep right away, but I just take that time to rest. And if I'm tired, I will go to sleep. But that's just kind of the midweek way to restore myself to get through the rest of the week. In terms of, you know, food, I do a lot of cooking when I have my kids with me. I like to know that I'm feeding them healthy meals, but I'm much more likely to eat what I guess we've seen this on social media recently, girl dinner, when my kids are not with me. So, prepared meals, takeout, or like easy light fare, like maybe avocado toast and a hard boiled egg or something, just really easy, fills my stomach. That's it. I do most of my shopping for everything online and have it delivered. That really saves me a lot of time. I do still go to the grocery store. That's like the one place I show up and shop. I like that. That's just a quirk I have. I have to give credit to building a support team. I have a therapist, a consultant or supervisor, a business coach, a leadership group, and I belong to a spa, a local spa that has a membership where you get a treatment each month, and I do that for self care. So that's really important to me just to take that time out for myself. Maybe I'll build up to 2 spa treatments a month. And then, like Jen said, with delegation, I outsource getting the lawn mowed, and that's something I do at home. And at work in the practice, I have tried to, you know, give team members the opportunity to take on more tasks, more responsibilities all the time. And I think my prevailing mantra or affirmation for all of this is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Sometimes a spelling error or um, typo or little, inaccurate grammar happens in something I send out, but I try not to worry about that and just focus on the overall getting things done mentality instead of doing it perfectly. Though my team told me about Grammarly, so now I have that installed on all my devices. Between autocorrect and moving fast, like I think it all works against me somehow. So those are some strategies, hacks that I utilize that kind of cross the personal professional realm.
I love that you authentically, at least to me, it authentically feels like when you're with your kids, you're with your kids. And then when you're working, you're working. I think that's such a Zen way to be. I think that's the way that a lot of us aspire to be. And so there's like, I know there's the psychologist me that says what I want clients to hear. And then there's the Colleen me who's like, I mean, my husband will be like, do your patients see how you live? Because it's like, do as I say, not as I do.
But Colleen, you work from home often, right? Are you primarily from home?
Always from
Yeah.
home. Yeah.
I think that adds a different dynamic because I know for me, I've been working home more now because I'm trying to, again, do some extra things on top of the business. But when my kids were your kids' age, I had to physically go into the office to work and come home and have that boundary. But that was just me at the time. I understand So I just think you have to give yourself a little grace, because I personally think it's very hard to work from home when your kids are home, you know?
Yeah, that's so true. There are some real benefits, I think, to having a physical workspace that you go to. And I mean, think about our parents, right? Like when they went to work, they went to a different building and they were there. There was no like ability for your kid to pop in and be like, "Hey, have you seen my whatever?" It
Yeah.
was like, and that I think is all it blends in. And at first, you kind of kid yourself and you're like, "Great, like I'm doing it all. Like I can be at home and when they get home from school and they can work." But like, you're not really doing anything well.
Right. And you probably feel scattered.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a lot of code switching when you're deep in a train of thought. I like to write a lot, and I'm writing like a blog for the website, and I'm thinking about ketamine IV therapy and its effects on depression, and I'm like trying to give some really good analogies. There's something that it's a different part of the brain that you're in when you're doing that, and then you have a kid come in. And his recent fascination is watching fat animals squeeze into tight spaces. So, so then my brain goes into that world. And there is a part of my brain that is like, that's really funny.
Hey, that's a nice break from sometimes doing some of the work we do. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, come on in. Let me see this
Yeah.
video.
He's like, Mom, you got to see this cat. And I mean, the cat is fat. And he's trying to get through that doggy door, and it's not going to happen. And then it happens, and you're like, I could watch this all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Colleen, we have a question for you, because listen, you've sold. So what has the biggest maybe struggle for you have been at this stage for selling a business? And
So the biggest struggle, I think, that's just sort of set the emotional undertone for me. And I think probably I'll have a better view of this as time goes on. So it's like trauma is kind of like, when your hands on your face like this, and then you can't really see it while you're in it. It's only until, time and therapy that you can pull it back and go, oh my God, I was in the middle of recovering from this thing. And there was truly, I was talking to Mike about it the other day, that the little t, not capital T, trauma of being in a group practice that sort of just took a life of its own and started to really run me instead of the other way around. And all the stresses that came with that, whether that be waking up to a resignation email from an employee that wasn't happy, or waking up to an angry email from a patient that's saying they're going to go to the board, um, getting, nasty lawyer emails from a disgruntled employee. It started to feel like this deck of cards. And I was truly in this like hypervigilant state for a long time. I don't like getting into trouble. I'm that typical type A student. I was always the good student. I never got into trouble. And to have a patient be upset with me, I got into this field to be liked and to help, not for people to think that I was somehow like not doing my job right, and certainly didn't want to be disliked by my employees. And so it was traumatic. And my husband was like, I would say big T. And I don't know, who knows, but I'm still reeling from that. And I think and I'm not a trauma specialist, but I think I'm in some sort of post traumatic state where I can't rest. I'm still in that like sympathetic arousal of like, something's like, somebody's gonna send me something again today that is gonna be, I'm gonna get into trouble or something, right? And it's this constant feeling of stress. So that has been the weirdest thing, because I'm like, intellectually, you're good. Like your practice is sold. You're good. You're okay. You're gonna be okay. But my body is in a different state.
yeah, that makes sense. And it probably is going to take you some time to have your nervous system become more balanced and calm. And
Yeah.
know this new normal for you?
Yeah. I'll also say too that the other challenge, and I have to think that this is part of being that like Enneagram 7, which is like sort of like the bon vivant. We love a good time. We love saying yes to everything, and really have a hard time staying in the silence or in the not knowing. I was dreaming for so long before I sold the practice of all the stuff I was going to do. I'm going to write the book. I'm going to make all these self-help tools. I'm going to do a YouTube channel. I'm going to do a podcast. And so it was like the day you get out of prison, you're like, what's new? What's changed in 20 years? Oh my God, what's a cell phone? How does this thing automatically dry my hands? Like my brain is on overload because I truly am in this sort of eustress state as well, which is a happy stress. Like there's so much I want to do and really not enough time in the day to be able to do all that. And so I think that most psychologists, most entrepreneurs would probably say, just like you started off with, Jen, that part of success is in the no, not in the yes. It's saying no and knowing what to say no to and knowing when to say yes. And I really struggle with saying no to things. I feel like I'm turning down an opportunity. It's like the FOMO.
Well, there's still plenty of time to do all those things that you named, you know. It sounds like a bit of overwhelm could happen when suddenly you're free of something that's been keep holding you back for a while. I have that, you know, idea too that if I stopped doing this, eventually I would have expansive time and unlimited projects I could pursue. But it's interesting and helpful to hear what your experience has been, Colleen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exciting. And we also live in this sort of AI bubble right now that I feel like I don't want to miss out on this AI piece. I think there's so many exciting things that we can do, both leveraging our expertise as therapists. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this podcast, because I just think now more than ever, we've got such technology at our fingertips to be able to get our work out there to a broader audience in a way that we've never had that ability before. And so I get so consumed by that. I'll give you an example. So I was working on my personal website the other day. And if you go to my personal website, drcolleenlong.com, you can see like all these little boxes. And I wanted it to look like a toy box because that's the way I think about when I'm creating all these different concepts and ideas, is like it's like a toy for me. I get that dopamine rush, that hit, and I really get excited about it. But there's only so much time in the day. And so, just think about this podcast alone, right? And you've got to record it, but that's only a small slice of it. Then you've got to think about the rough script. You got to think about what the social media posts are going to look like. How are you going to engage your audience? You've got to do a SWOT analysis on other podcasts and thinking about who gets the most engagement, what is the most engaging, what do listeners want to hear, what's the most valuable content, right? So that alone could be its own job.
It could
And
be.
then you have all these other things that you're doing as well. And there's a new tool out called Nano Banana. Have you guys heard of it?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so
No. I love when you give us one though. I feel like
Yeah.
I always go back and research it.
I feel like I want to do a spinoff segment from this podcast where it's like Colleen's AI tool.
Yes, you should definitely do that.
I feel like, because I just watch the other YouTubers, the whippersnappers, the 20 somethings that are out there that are using this new technology. And then I figure out like, we could use this for this. So I was playing with this Nano Banana, and it's essentially Google Gemini's Dolly or Midjourney. So Dolly and Midjourney were the AIs that were image creators first. I think a lot of the challenges that most people have if you're not a coder or a graphic designer is that the prompting, if you don't have the prompting right, the image that you get is not really what you were looking for. And so a lot of people just kind of gave up on it. Plus there's like, you're in Discord and I don't even understand that. So Google Gemini Nano Banana has made it very simple. You just type it in and it's like ChatGPT or Google. It's exactly that Google like feel, which is make this thing, right? And I'll even go into ChatGPT and say, help me create a prompt for my personal website. I want it to look like very clean, aesthetic, white background. I'm in like sort of a pastel fitted suit, make me thin. And I'm like sitting on a stool blowing bubblegum. ChatGPT will then come up with all that language of like negative space and like what the prompt needs to look like. And then I go into Nano Banana. And if you look on my website now, it's just, it looks like a photographer, like I had a professional session. And so I just think like that's just one example of one tool that before, as a professional, you'd have to go find a photographer. You'd have to go do a shoot day and take all day. They'd give you the images. You'd have to go through the images, costly. And then you're like, I guess this is what I'm using on my website for the next 20 years. Not with Nano Banana. Like you can just like do it. Like I was like, make me in a spacesuit. And it just does that in 3 seconds, you know? So I'm just so excited about the possibilities that we have now. And I feel like time's running out. Like I have to do all of it now.
Colleen, you light up when you talk about AI. You should 100% try to find time to spend one day a week just researching it.
Yeah. Well, and my mom was a computer programmer and my dad was an electrical engineer. So I'm sure I've got that like techie, left brain that loves all its geeky stuff, but I think will be a game changer for so many therapists. So like when we're talking about off the chair, we're talking about, how do you get off the chair? I do think AI is going to be one of those tools for people where, as you start to create your content, let's say that you're creating a meditation deck that you're going to sell on Amazon. Well, now they've got these tools that you could illustrate all of those cards and have that product up to sell that day, making money in your sleep, versus 5 years ago, I was on Fiverr and Upwork trying to find a graphic artist. And then they would come back to me with like 3 proofs and I just had to pick one of those. It's changed the game so much for us.
So our next
has.
AI post of us will be us in spacesuits.
I'm thinking an astronaut theme.
I think that's perfect.
Why not? Why not? So what about for you guys when you think about like how you're using AI or any technology for that matter to help you get your bandwidth back and to feel more on top of your life? Do you guys use anything like a Notion, Asana, ClickUp? Like what tools do you use in everyday life that you feel like are really helpful that listeners could maybe have as a takeaway?
I just started using Notion and so far I like it. My COO uses it and she was convincing me that we can do a lot of cross, comparisons and like we can send each other a lot of things through there. So that's super helpful with planning.
Yeah. Now is Notion like Asana? That's the only one that I'm familiar with where you're kind of like moving one task from one column to the next as it's going through different stages.
A little bit, but it's more like, I almost feel like it's more of an organization. It's similar. I don't know I haven't like delved into it long enough. There's different ways to use it. So I think the way that I'm using it is more for like agendas for meetings, more of my brain dumping.
Okay. Love the brain dump. That's one thing I love doing in the morning is the brain dump.
Yes.
Sounds really bad. What about you, Erica? What things do you feel like have been really helpful for you to feel more on top of life?
I don't know if I have any great technology hacks to share. I think a lot of my brain is downloaded into the Notes app on my phone. I have succeeded in making that more organized. Like you can divide the notes into folders now, and I utilize the little check off option. So I'm sure it's similar to some of the other, apps that are specifically around organization. But that works for me. I'm slow to adopt new technology, but when I do, it usually proves beneficial.
Yeah. I think there's two camps in our field where you've got therapists that are like you, where you're like, I don't know, like the jury's out. And it can be just from I'm comfortable writing my own notes, or a privacy standpoint of like, yeah, I know they say it's HIPAA compliant, but I don't really trust it. I think that can be part of it. And then I also think we have another camp that's like, what else can it do? Which is where I'm at. When I discovered NoteZap, which was it's the HIPAA compliant AI, it was like all of a sudden I didn't have 15 minutes of note writing after each session because it was recording it. And for me, who does reports and writes reports, when you've got someone at intake that's going through their whole life and how these concerns have sort of been interwoven throughout that, I would then have to remember and type all that out after the session. Now it can record all of that, create a transcript, and even prompt it to write in a report format. And it saved me hours and hours on each case.
The other thing I love about like Claude or ChatGPT is, as it obviously knows you and you have your own, I guess, what is that called? Your own GPT system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love that I can type in something and it knows me so well that it's connecting my 3 past ideas and like, nope, this is where you're headed. This is where we're going to go. And I love asking it questions like that of like, what direction should I take next? I want to do X, Y, and Z. So I love that ability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really cool that it can start to almost write in your voice. It starts to understand your voice. I will say, I think I'm getting dumber as a result of using AI because when I was writing reports, let's say 5 years ago, I would take the science, and then the art of the science was then relaying that in a way to the patient that they understood, that was relatable. It's like, yes, executive functioning is impaired compared to cognitive functioning, but what does that mean? Right. And only a few people are going to read that and understand what that means. But if I can write that in a way that it's like her brain actually works really, really quickly, but in the areas where she needs to plan, that's where she finds those challenges. So I got really good at that. And then AI came in and I was like, help me say this in a way a layperson would understand. And it's like way better than I would have ever wrote in 3 seconds, not 2 hours. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's fantastic from that standpoint of being able to break down like sort of abstract concepts in a way that every person can understand. And I also think just in terms of its ability to analyze documents. So like Bastion GPT is one of those HIPAA compliant ones that can take, tons and tons of documents. And as a psychologist, you're looking through lots of reports a lot of time, scan all of it and go, oh, but wait, in 4th grade, remember they had an IEP. And you might not have remembered that if you were doing that on your own. So that's where I think that those tools can be really, really helpful. When I think about the place that I'm in life right now, and I guess what I'm wanting people to kind of take away from this is that it's not always just this like pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if you sell your practice. And don't get me wrong, life has gotten immeasurably better and less stressful as a result of selling my practice. But wherever you go, there you are. That's that, I think it's John Kabat-Zinn that said that. Or maybe he re-said that, but wherever you go, there you are. So if you're stressed for most of your life, you're still going to find a way to be stressed after you sold your practice. And as a young kid, I remember watching my mom, and she would get so stressed, and she retired and she got like a really easy job. She's like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then she was still that stressed, even with the easy job. And it was a impactful lesson for me because I realized wherever she goes, there she is. And now here I am in my 40s, still learning that lesson for myself of like, no one's going to give you that magic bullet. Like, you're not going to just all of a sudden sell your practice and then be like the Zen person you always wanted to be. You have to take that time back and recreate your day in a more intentional way. I think every day you have to learn to do it over again of like, how am I going to be intentional about this day versus reactive, which so many people become reactive to their inboxes. They check their inbox. Oh yeah, I got to do that. And oh yeah, I got to do that. And then by the end of the day, you've done nothing that you wanted to do and everything that everybody else needed you to.
Yeah, that was me for years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the goal, right? Is realizing life is short. There's never going to be a day where your to-do list is all done. You're like, well, what should I get into today? Time to start playing the piano. It's time to start playing the piano now. You have to take that time back because you will always fill up that time with the must do's or the need to do's versus the like to do's, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And when I'm talking about some of this creative stuff too, I love this stuff. Like, this is not work for me. The writing and the AI and what we're doing, the podcast and all of these creative things are so fun. And I think as a mom, you get, or at least for me, I get that mom guilt where my kids are always coming in and they see my head behind a screen and they're like, Mom, what are you doing? It's a holiday. You want to go to the pool? And I'm like, no, I don't want to go to the pool. I want to like play around on AI and like write stuff and make stuff. And I actually sat down and wrote like a children's book for them about a mom with a hot chocolate room upstairs and how she loved to create hot chocolate all day. But then she had these like little candy trees that needed her as well. And I was trying to create it as a way for the kids to understand that I love them so much and I want to be with them. But also there's this other thing that I'm really, really passionate about that I get to do.
I think that's important to model for them, for them to see that we have meaningful careers that we love and that, we're contributing to the greater good and, society in a positive way, especially in a time when things are so fraught and stressed and, somewhat backwards. I think it's helpful. I know that's important to me, especially with my daughter, for her to see me engaging and, she said from the time she was little, she's not interested in becoming a therapist. She doesn't want to listen to other people's problems. She has more of a scientific mind. I think some of what you've shared about yourself, Colleen, she loves sciences and is taking like all science and math classes in 8th grade this year. So I see her going in a different direction, but I hope to inspire her to, do that with everything she's got. So I think it's really healthy for our kids to see us love our work and to be inspired by it and to also have them and love them.
Yeah, I think it's so powerful. I mean, listen, maybe your daughter will be like a PhD and she's just back there doing all the research that helps people in a different way. So I think it can be done in multiple ways.
Definitely. I agree with you.
Yeah. What about you, Jen? What do you feel like? Do you feel that constant tug with your kids? Or do you feel like now that they're a little bit older, they're like, are they out of that phase where they're constantly bidding for your time?
Yeah, I'm a little bit out of that phase, and I also am in such a better phase for my balance and work. But I remember being where you are.
Isn't it funny how people, and I think well-meaning too. I remember when I had my twins and my third, and they're 17 months apart. So I would have a triple stroller that I was pushing around in Boston in the cold, and people would, it's a great conversation piece. People would just come up and be like, oh my gosh. And I would remember people going, it goes by so fast, enjoy it. And I was like, oh, okay, not fast enough.
I know.
It felt like time stood still in those moments. And I know moms that they do like really love those moments, but I guess where my brain always wasn't always in the creation of things. And I would still, like, I wrote a book as they were growing up. Like it's always been almost like a compulsion. And so I I do really feel a push to enjoy it because I know the season is short, and it is just that, a season when your kids are young, and eventually you're going to know them more as an adult than you'll know them as a child, right? So I know it's short, and yet there's still this like push to be everything to everyone, and to still like want to do the stuff that I like to do too, which is play for me. So one suggestion that I would give to people who are maybe not as um, close to, on the spectrum as, I don't want to say spectrum, but on this range where you hear Jen and Erica, and I think sometimes people can maybe hear that and compare and go, well, gosh, I'm just not there. Or what came up for me, Erica, as you were talking, was like, gosh, I want to be present. Like, what I want to be fully there, but I never feel like I'm fully there. So for those people who are still struggling with feeling like you just don't have it all together, here is just one tip or piece of advice. So I'm doing this as a social experiment, but last week I started to think about how underwater I am. And I truly don't know if this is just a season of life, and like other moms hear this and they're like, yeah, it's called being a mom to 3 kids under 12. Or if we live in some weird zeitgeist that's this like overcompensatory place from the 80s. We're living in this like child-centric place that's so child-centric. And everything is about like, watch what you say in front of them. They're downloading that programming all the time. So you're just monitoring yourself. I mean, I remember my parents would just watch like Poltergeist. If I wanted to watch TV, I was watching Poltergeist and I was like 10. Now, I don't know that I've ever watched an adult show in the presence of my kids. It's like,
Oh, no way. Yeah.
it's like your whole life is lived for them and curated just for their little, blossoming minds. And it's exhausting. And not only that, but like the level of engagement and involvement that I think is expected of you, both as a mom and a dad, is not realistic. Number one. Number two, we can't do it all. Yep. Here we are still trying. And so on my voicemail last week, I had 54 missed calls. And yes, I used the robo blocker and silence unknown callers, still 54. And I just put in my outgoing voicemail, hey guys, I'm really sorry. If you want to learn more, go to drcollinglong.com/I'm sorry. And there's a long open apology letter to everyone that's trying to hear back from me, whether it's a patient waiting on a report, or a teacher that needs to schedule an IEP, or my mom who doesn't probably know how to go to my website. It's like, I truly don't know how to do all the things all at once. And so my hope is to appeal to the humanity in people by just asking for grace. And as mental health professionals, I think we're in a unique place to set examples for others to ask for help. Like we always say that, like, ask for help, self-care, right? Someone commits suicide and you're like, gosh, had they only just asked for help? And it's like, what does that look like? I'm not going to call you, Erica, and go, hey, can you watch my kids? But I might ask for grace. And I think that's what I'm suggesting today is, even if you're overwhelmed, and I'm curious to hear others' thoughts, if you think it's a season of life or if it's like truly we're living in a strange time, just asking for compassion from people. Like, I'm just really sorry. I am underwater right now. And I don't know when I'm going to be back. I'm just treading right now. And hopefully I'll see those lines in the carpet, those vacuum lines in the carpet once again. But until then, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think there's this, myth about moms having to be perfect and, uphold a certain persona, or we are judged and shamed quickly for perhaps, maybe letting our kids watch the rated R movie, which I have, and, or leaving for a couple hours to go record a podcast on a holiday when it should be blissful family time. I mean, women are held in general to much higher standards than men are. And so I think we're cutting through layers of uh, cultural stereotypes here. That's what you're speaking to is, can moms get a break? And can moms be not judged as harshly for living and having lives and maintaining a sense of who we are, despite all the pressures of motherhood and all you know, the do's and don'ts of motherhood? It's a good question.
Mhm.
And, I don't know that we're, as a culture, there quite yet. But, certainly we can model that, like you're saying, as therapists and business women for our kids and
Mhm.
other people who might be looking for
Yeah.
that permission.
Yeah. What comes up for you, Jen?
I mean, I
Kids.
think society has unrealistic
Yeah.
expectations of what we can 100%, what we should be doing and what we should accomplish.
Mhm.
Um, for myself, I kind of don't have as much guilt affiliated with it anymore. I think I did when my kids were younger, but I feel like it's important to me, especially that I have a daughter. I have two sons as well, but I think it's very important for me. It's almost like a push that I have a daughter, that I feel even more of a need to kind of plow through and be who I want to be in this world and show her that that's really important, whatever it is she decides to do. But
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's that we just have such high standards for ourselves as parents, for ourselves as moms. And I do think that there is some bit of therapeutic value when we reparent our kids, we're reparenting ourselves,
yeah,
right? So, like, we kind of give them all the goodies that we maybe wish that we got that we didn't. And so there's that psychological pressure there to always be on. But then there's also just the physical, you know, hey, we're doing a 3-hour orientation on Wednesday. And I'm like, I'm assuming this is for the children, right? Because the adults work during the week. No, Colleen, all the moms will be at school. We hope you can join us. And it could just be where I live too. I live in Orange County, California. So a lot of the wives have, and I mean, smart lawyers, that have stopped working to fully take care of their kids in this stage of life. And then will return to it as they get older. But for now are really content doing that stuff. And I guess I envy that ability to do that. And I just feel like I would be missing out on career. I think that's hard to say as a woman, that you would
yeah.
feel like you're missing out on your career.
And isn't it okay to maybe want both? I'm not
Mhm.
saying it's perfect, but I think it's okay to want both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being home with your kids and also, yeah, working or not giving up your career.
Yeah. And I really, at this point, no judgment. In fact, I wish that I could be that person that's like at the park with my kids. Like, what a great, like, I get to not work and just stay home with them. And I tried to try that for about 3 minutes. And I was like, I'm going to kill myself and everyone around me. I need to be doing something, And so, to each his own. You got to just figure out I mean, it's so trite, but it's trite because it's true. You got to figure out like who you are, and then just like you said, Erica, you just like kind of almost put blinders on and just stay in that lane. When you were talking about going to the grocery store, I went to Trader Joe's the other day. I was like, this is blissful. I just went to the store by myself, and I was like, this is amazing. I can just browse the aisles. No one's screaming at me. I'm not like, put it back. No, we have too much of that. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I could just be present in Trader Joe's. And so many times I use Instacart or whatever to just get that done. But it was really nice just being present in that task. And so that analog way of living, which is kind of what you're talking about, Erica, right? Which is like, I just have a notes app. That's where I just download everything, and that's what I use. Sometimes I think that might actually be healthier.
It works for me. I mean, those are just things that I do. I certainly look at new tools when they come out and, think about incorporating them. From the group practice owner standpoint, I've kind of hit the brakes on using AI because I feel like there's a lot more for me to learn and a lot more informed consent to pursue from clients before we implement that. That's just more of a business arena type thing that I want to do my research well before I give the green light to young therapists who are new at this. I didn't have AI to write my notes when I started out. So, I sound old. I sound like I'm getting old.
You're like, back in my day.
In my day.
I had a quill and scroll, and I used it by candlelight.
When I used my jumbo pack of yellow legal pads from Costco, one of my clients once said, one can never have too many legal pads. It made me crack up because she was right.
So as we're sort of talking about all this stuff, what are some takeaways or questions that you guys would have for the listeners?
I would love listeners to DM us and let us know what their invisible success hacks are as busy moms. We'll feature you in a future episode.
Yeah.
I love that.
That sounds great.
What about for you, Erica?
Maybe we can even adopt some of those for ourselves if they have good ones.
Yeah. I think there's got to be some people out there that are where you guys are, where they're like, yeah, I use these things and this has changed my life. This has been a game changer for me. Or maybe there's some struggling stragglers out there like me who are just like, well, I'm just glad here I'm not in it alone.
I think, I'd be curious what listeners what kind of stereotypes or tropes about motherhood they think we should leave behind. Like, which ones are just dead and, we should just forget. No more guilt, no more shame, just empowered mothering. What does that look like going forward?
Yeah. I would have the question. I have two questions, actually. So DM us on the Instagram or on the YouTube channel, Off the Chair Podcast. One question would be, is what we're living in right now, in what I'm describing, is this just like normal mother stuff that there's like a season of life, and it's just like everybody knows it once you're through it, and you're just literally treading water, and I was like missing a tooth for 2 weeks, and I forgot I have to go to the dentist. Like, that's the level of lack of self-care. And I'm just wondering if other moms are sort of like, yeah, it's a season, or is there a bigger thing happening here that we've got to course correct about the way that we work and the shoulds, like the shoulding all over ourselves? Is there a bigger course correction that needs to be made here? So that would be the first question. The second question is, can you live like I'm living it as an entrepreneur? Like, if you're 7 and you say yes to all the things, will that eventually catch up with you? Or is there a way to not say no and still thrive? Or is the answer like, no, Colin, you got to give up something? Supposed to be my two questions.